I'm going to regret it, but talk to me on Twitter and put posts up on Reddit, or on constructive stuff, because only 20% of it has been constructive so far, but I completely understand that.
All right, let's have a constructive conversation. Hey guys, Taki here. Sorry for the long delay. I wanted to get this video out a few weeks ago, back when the community was up in arms, but I was on vacation. Since we didn't get an update this week, I bring you my video on microtransactions in Runescape. On screen now is an overview of the video. As always, you can find timestamps for everything that I talk about in the description box below, so feel free to skip around. Let's get into it. First things first, a microtransaction is any exchange you make beyond a subscription fee using real money for something inside a game. Bonds from both versions of RS count as microtransactions since they can be exchanged for in-game money. Let's do a quick rundown on microtransactions available in both versions of the game. For RuneScape 3, we have Bonds, Solomon's Store, which includes cosmetic items and functional upgrades like legendary pets, bank presets, and action bar loadouts. We also have Treasure Hunter, Rune Metrics, the Wealth Evaluator, and Rune Pass. On the other side, we have Old School RS, and the only thing that they have are bonds. A couple of weeks ago, Jagex did a live stream to discuss, among other things, the Rune Pass fiasco. There were some interesting takeaways from that stream that I will highlight here. The first thing that they talked a lot about in this stream were revenue goals. These are essentially targets that the team is given to meet goals for their investors, but they have the ability to decide how to raise those funds. They gave some insight that essentially shows that when we are seeing a period of crazy back-to-back overpowered promos, that they're probably having a difficult time raising those funds. They do seem to be aware, however, that they cannot rely on these forever.
We are given targets to achieve. But we are given the ability, however we want to achieve those targets, we are given that choice as a team. So we know how we want to achieve our targets. We know as a team that we don't want to forevermore and in the future, in the next couple of years, to always be doing power promos. We don't want it to be smouldering lamps. We don't want to do that. That could well be to the detriment of the game. You're delivering a lot of XP. People are soon going to stop kind of engaging with those promos. We want to be in a position whereby, we can focus on cosmetics. We can focus on progress.
The next thing that they talked about was how Solomon's Store doesn't bring in enough money to meet their revenue targets.
There's a perception, I think, amongst the player base that Solomon General Store must do as much or better than Treasure Hunter promos. It is not even close. It is not true.
And the last thing that they talked about that's worth mentioning here for a later discussion is how they ultimately want to push RuneScape 3 to be all about cosmetic progressions and to move away from engaging people by giving them loads of free experience.
A small payment to a progression track. It's an achievement track. And that's keeping people in it, and it's additive to the game, and it's because it means that you don't necessarily have to go down a pay-to-win channel. And if it works, it means we can focus on that, and that means pulling the focus away from other things. That could mean, if it's really successful, it might mean promo frequency. It might mean power of promos. It might even mean membership. We can pull away from those other things and focus on Rune Pass. I genuinely want to be in a position in the future whereby we can say, I'm glad there are so many different ways that I can achieve and progress in the game outside of XP, and that, we pulled back a little bit on.
Now, given all of these things, I want to talk about 3 potential pathways that Jagex will go down given their history. Before we get started, I'm taking my personal opinions out of this as a player of both versions of the game, and I'm instead going to try to view this as a sort of neutral person that genuinely doesn't want the company to destroy their games. In scenario 1, Rune Pass, or something like it, becomes successful enough to keep people motivated in the game and pushes back or removes Treasure Hunter completely from the game. Old School RS is not affected at all, and membership costs and bond prices stay the same. Additionally, Jagex's new game is successful enough to push the developer to stop milking RuneScape as their main revenue stream for their investors. In scenario 2, Jagex fails to create an MTX model to replace Treasure Hunter, and the frequency and power of those promos increases to the point that it pushes more players away from the game. Jagex raises the price of membership to attempt to raise more subscription and bond revenue from their Old School RS players. In scenario 3, Jagex fails to successfully create a game built off their RS IP. Multiple devs within the company are fired, and content creation takes a complete backseat to rampant promos to make up for failed investments. Membership fees are raised to the point where they rival or surpass many other popular MMOs on the market, and the player base of both games declines, with R3 being too small to milk for revenue targets. MXT makes its way into Old School RS in new ways. And that brings us to the discussion. What do you want the company to do? Hopefully it's clear now that even if you are an Old School RS player and hate RS3 completely for whatever reason, the status of that game will ultimately negatively or positively impact you. Let's keep the conversation constructive, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Until next time, Taki out.
There will always be memes.